Hi, I'm Dr. Rene Hackney. Welcome to week 1, part 2 of 8 weeks to positive discipline. In this segment, I'll be talking about giving children empathy. If you come into a discipline exchange and your child is already upset, angry about something, and you dive right into the discipline, they're not listening. They're not ready for all that language. So the idea is to stop and manage the emotions first. At least acknowledge how they're feeling, where they are with emotion, before you move into the fix. I want parents here to separate child's emotion from child's behavior. I know these things go hand in hand. They get angry and they throw matchbox cars. They get disappointed and they kick the cat on the way out of the kitchen. And what I'm saying is it's okay for them to be angry and disappointed. They are people. They're going to have emotion, negative emotion, big emotion. It's not okay to kick the cat. It's not okay to throw matchbox cars at your friends. So you want to be sure that the discipline itself is landing on the behavior. The emotion we want to connect with. We want to coach that emotion, label that emotion, help them learn about moving through it and communicating it in a better way. Part of that is also thinking as a parent, how approachable are you when your children are angry or frustrated? Are you able to listen to that emotion? Are you able to sit with it and be okay as they move through? There's often parents these days who want their kids to just stay happy, and they're putting up buffers often. I remember even my own husband, when the girls were little, he would really awkwardly say, just happy them up. And I got the point. He was saying, if they're happy, we don't need all this discipline. It's a tough way to go through life. If you're putting up those barriers all the time, you're putting up those buffers all the time, they're going to go out into the world, especially off to preschool, and be devastated. There isn't someone following them around, keeping them happy all the time. It's actually good for them to have a lot of experience moving through these emotions, learning how to manage, learning how to pick themselves up. When they get frustrated, angry, upset, the idea is to coach them through, to recognize emotion and be approachable about emotion. This also means to avoid denying emotions. Denying emotions is really easy to do. Let's say a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old are playing Candyland, and 3-year-old is losing and throws the pieces across the room. I'm not saying it's okay to throw the pieces. That's the behavior. But it is okay for them to be angry. They actually already are angry. So many parents will start that process by closing down the communication. The parent will come in and say, you shouldn't be so angry, it's just a game. That parent is fighting a lost battle. Their child already is that angry. And so instead of coming in, you shouldn't be so angry, it's just a game, saying that emotion that's naturally happening to you is wrong, the emotion itself is actually right. They're going to feel that way the next 10 times they lose at games, and they need to learn better ways to manage. So it's recognize the emotion and help them moving forward, as opposed to deny the emotion where they can't learn moving forward. When you say, you shouldn't be so angry, it's just a game, when you deny that emotion, they either have to get bigger and louder because you didn't understand, or they bottle it up and they pinch somebody when they walk by because they're still angry, they're still frustrated, they didn't get to get that thing out, and so you want to let them get it out. I'll give you a little more dramatic example of this. My older daughter, when she was probably in about second or third grade, we were at carpool after school, and the whole school carpooled. I was standing next to a man who we've known for several years, friend of my husband's, nice guy. My daughter comes out, she's standing on the other side of me, and as we went to get in the car a minute later, she said, Mom, do you know so-and-so, the guy? I said, yeah. She said, he creeps me out. I froze. I said, have you seen him alone? She said, nope. I said, okay, that I can deal with. Tell me what about him creeps you out? And she didn't have a good answer. She said, I don't know, he just does. Now, part of me wanted to negate her emotional response. Part of me was like, he's a nice guy, he's a friend of your dad's, I've never felt that way, but none of that matters. She's having emotional response, and we want her to trust that for good reason. So I said, if he creeps you out, you don't need to be anywhere near him. You don't even need to be polite. And she was like, really? I said, yeah. Hoping I don't have to apologize to this man. But fast forward 8 years later, she's 16. She's out in the world on her own, walks into a room and gets that creeped out feeling. Trust it 100%, get yourself out. I don't want her standing there second guessing, well, maybe I should be polite. Well, maybe I'm misreading. Trust the emotion. find a better way to move forward. And so this idea in the moment, trust the emotional response. I know you're not thinking all that when 3-year-olds throw Candyland pieces, but it's the same message. The emotion is there. Let's find better ways to move forward. Now, if you truly feel that emotional reaction was way out of bounds, we need to curb, at least let them calm down before you get there. You can come back later in the day when all is well and say, remember what happened this morning with the candy? I didn't think it was too big. It was too much. What are we going to do tomorrow if that happens? And again, you're emotion coaching. You're talking to them about what their options are when that happens again moving forward. There's also the bullet point on there of avoid questioning emotions. It's actually avoid questioning emotions unless it works. So I tend to think there's a window from probably 4 through about 9 or 10 years old. When you question emotions with a 6-year-old, most of them, they join right into that conversation. When you say to a 6-year-old, why are you crying? What is wrong with you? Most of them will tell you for the next 5 minutes, why they're crying, what all's wrong with them. Younger children, 2s and 3s, when you ask a little 2.5-year-old, why are you crying? What is wrong with you? Most of them go, because they don't have a lot of language for you. They're not pulling that all together. Younger children, if they can't join the conversation, better than questioning, I tend to think just give it to them. I see you're sad. I know you're frustrated. This is giving the language so that eventually they can be joining in. In my house, when they're teenagers, when you dive in and question emotions, why are you crying? What is wrong with you? At least half the time I would get, they would dismiss me. They would walk away. So if it's not working because they're too young or because they're too old, I would just dive in with the empathy language. But if you're questioning emotions and you're getting good answers, that's a fine way to go. This idea of giving empathy is just that. It's acknowledge the emotions. You are angry. You didn't like that game. And this is all about yous. You're validating. You're acknowledging. You don't need to avoid the yous here. This is what they want you to do when that negative emotion is expressed at you, as it will be someday if it hasn't been already. Allison was really young for this. She was about 3 years old. We were in the little Gymboree store. She was watching the TV. I was shopping on the sale rack. It's time to go. She's not ready to leave. I know I gave her empathy and choices, but I ended up wrestling her into the stroller with my elbow. She was furious. She looked up at me, beet red, and she hissed. I didn't even know she knew these words. She said, I hate you. I spent the next 5 minutes not crying, trying to calm myself down, reminding myself she doesn't actually hate me. She's just picking the worst thing she can say. And where in the world did she learn that? But once I've calmed myself down, first words to her are empathy. You were mad. You wanted to stay in that store. And she went, yes, I know. That's mad. When you're angry like that, you can say this, you can say this, you can say, those are choices. And then, since that happened, we're going home. You can curb that word choice like a behavior. Since that happened, we're going home. But you want to start with empathy for the emotion before curb word choice like a behavior. These are the same steps when they're expressing negative emotion between siblings. Let's say you've got 2 kids down the hall screaming at each other, and someone storms in and says, I hate her. I'm not saying they get to throw those words around, but in the moment, if you start with, you will love your sister, you are bottling all that up. So instead of you will love your sister, it's recognizing the emotions. I hear you. You are frustrated with her. You don't like it when she's in your room because that's how she's feeling. And then move forward. Those words are too hurtful. And you might give choices, you might give consequence language, which I promise we're going to get to. This idea of giving empathy, it may be good to match intensity level. Let's say you've got a livid 8-year-old and you come in the room and go, you are mad. Okay, you don't get it at all. But you come in the room and go, you are mad. That's matching intensity. It lets the child know that you understand the level. It can be helpful. There's also other ways to give empathy. There's empathy through storytelling. I remember when I was little and that happened to me, or I remember this kid in school. It's not their emotion in the moment, but it's recognizing where they are. It's recognizing their emotion in the moment. There's also empathy through wants and wishes. You wanted to win that game. You wish we were still there. You wanted to stay in that store. Every once in a while, you might get a child, when you label their emotion, it sends them through the roof. You'll know really fast if this happens. Let's say you've got that livid 8-year-old and you come in the room and go, wow, you are mad. And they go, I'm not mad. They're mad and they don't like you labeling their emotions. That is a child where wants and wishes might be the better way to go. You wanted them to listen, as opposed to you were so frustrated they weren't listening. Wants and wishes, storytelling, perfectly fine ways to give empathy. Questioning, as long as it's working, perfectly fine way to give empathy. The idea here is that you want to acknowledge emotions before you move forward, before you try to fix situation. On your outline for empathy, there are 3 parent practice. If you have an outline printed, it's good to turn the video off, jot down just empathy, just acknowledge emotions and why they might feel that way. And once you're done, turn the video back on. I'll go over those answers. So the first parent practice for empathy. Your 2-year-old is crying hard because someone knocked over their block tower. This was the second attempt. The first one fell. This isn't really a discipline exchange, but it is a good time for empathy. There's an emotion happening here. So the idea is to pause and deal with the emotions first. So many parents want to start with, don't worry, we can fix it. That's the second sentence. First sentence to me is saying, I know you're frustrated. That keeps happening. Oh, wow, you're upset. You were working so hard. Don't worry, we can fix it. So you're acknowledging the frustration or the upset and then moving forward to the fix. The next practice item. Your 3-year-old is stomping her foot and glaring at her older sister. Older sister is holding a doll out of reach. Younger sister is screaming at her. This was for sure my house when the girls were little. In that moment, you want to give empathy to the younger, avoiding you message for older. So you might say, I see you're upset, you want that doll. I know you're frustrated, you weren't finished with that. This is empathy language. If older sister took the doll and ran to the other end of the house, it's fine to say the yous. I see you're angry, your sister keeps taking your doll. I know you're upset, you really want that back from her. It's just if she's within earshot, you're likely about to turn and give that child some choices or consequence language, and you don't want to close down the communication with a you message for the older. So empathy for younger, avoiding you message for older. The next example, your 6-year-old comes home from a friend's house on the verge of tears. So before you get into how to fix things or what they could have done differently, it's starting with, you seem really upset. It's hard when people don't listen. I remember when I was little, this is a perfectly fine time to use that storytelling for empathy. This language isn't so tricky. The trick here is remembering to give it before the discipline or before the fix. So your homework this week is iMessages and empathy. Every discipline exchange, come up with an I message. If you can remember, I'm angry, my lamp is broken. And an empathy. Wow, you're frustrated. You didn't like that game. These are foundation steps. They're not really designed for behavior change. They're designed to keep the communication open, to bring down the temperature of the emotion for all involved. The more you can get comfortable with this language, we're going to add on to the active steps. Thank you so much.